In December 2020, the United States Department of Justice filed a sweeping civil complaint against Walmart Incorporated, alleging the retail giant had unlawfully dispensed controlled substances through its nationwide pharmacy network. According to the federal government, Walmart pharmacies filled thousands of prescriptions that lacked valid medical purposes, fueling America's devastating opioid epidemic. The allegations marked an unprecedented escalation, a federal agency accusing the nation's largest retailer of contributing to a public health catastrophe that had already claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. To understand the scope of these allegations, one must grasp Walmart's pharmaceutical footprint. According to the DOJ's complaint, Walmart operates more than 5,000 pharmacies across the United States, filling over 230 million prescriptions annually. The Department of Justice claimed this vast network became a pipeline for illegal opioid distribution. Federal investigators alleged that Walmart's pharmacies dispensed controlled substances in violation of the Controlled Substances Act, creating what prosecutors described as a systemic failure across the company's entire pharmacy operation. The Department of Justice's complaint centered on three core allegations. First, prosecutors claimed Walmart pharmacists filled prescriptions they knew or should have known were invalid. Second, the DOJ alleged Walmart pressured pharmacists to fill prescriptions rapidly, creating conditions where proper scrutiny became impossible. Third, federal investigators asserted that Walmart failed to maintain effective controls and report suspicious orders of controlled substances to the Drug Enforcement Administration as required by federal law. Each allegation, if proven, represented a violation of the Controlled Substances Act, exposing Walmart to potentially billions in civil penalties. The Department of Justice investigation did not emerge overnight. According to court filings, federal investigators had been examining Walmart's pharmacy practices for years before filing charges. The investigation intensified as the opioid crisis deepened nationwide, with overdose deaths climbing annually. Federal prosecutors reviewed prescription records, interviewed pharmacists and customers, and analyzed Walmart's internal compliance systems. By the time the DOJ filed its complaint, investigators had reportedly compiled evidence spanning multiple years and thousands of individual prescriptions across dozens of states. Walmart did not wait passively for the federal government's lawsuit. In October 2020, 2 months before the DOJ filed its complaint, Walmart launched a preemptive legal strike. The company sued the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration, according to public court records. Walmart's lawsuit argued that federal regulators had failed to provide clear guidance to pharmacies and were now unfairly scapegoating the retailer for a crisis created by others. The company's legal team contended that Walmart pharmacists had relied on DEA-registered physicians' prescriptions, trusting the federal system designed to prevent abuse. Walmart's defense rested on a fundamental argument about responsibility and authority. According to the company's court filings, Walmart maintained that its pharmacists had dispensed medications based on prescriptions written by DEA-licensed physicians. The company argued that pharmacists lacked the legal authority to override doctors' medical judgments. Walmart contended it had implemented compliance programs and that any suggestion of systemic failure mischaracterized isolated incidents. The retailer's legal position essentially asked, how can a pharmacy be held liable for filling prescriptions written by federally licensed doctors? The legal battle turned on a critical question: what are a pharmacist's obligations when presented with a potentially problematic prescription? Federal law requires pharmacists to ensure prescriptions are issued for legitimate medical purposes by practitioners acting within the scope of professional practice. The DOJ argued this duty meant Walmart pharmacists should have refused suspicious prescriptions, regardless of the prescriber's license. Walmart countered that the standard was vague and placed an impossible burden on pharmacists to second-guess medical professionals. This clash over professional responsibility formed the heart of the legal dispute. The Walmart case unfolded against the backdrop of America's catastrophic opioid epidemic. According to federal health data, opioid overdoses have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans over the past 2 decades. The crisis created enormous pressure on government officials to hold someone accountable. Pharmaceutical manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, and physicians all faced scrutiny and lawsuits. State and local governments, struggling with the costs of addiction treatment and overdose response, sought compensation from any entity with a role in opioid distribution. Walmart became one target among many in a nationwide reckoning. Before reaching resolution with the federal government, Walmart had already settled opioid-related claims with state and local governments. In November 2022, according to company announcements, Walmart agreed to pay $3 billion to resolve allegations from states, municipalities, and Native American tribes. That settlement did not include an admission of wrongdoing, a standard provision in such agreements. The company maintained it had strong defenses but chose to settle to avoid the uncertainty and expense of prolonged litigation. These state settlements foreshadowed the eventual federal resolution. The Department of Justice lawsuit moved toward resolution in early 2025. According to federal court filings, Walmart agreed in principle to settle the DOJ's civil claims. The settlement framework required Walmart to pay substantial financial penalties and implement enhanced compliance measures across its pharmacy network. While settlement negotiations occurred under seal, the structure followed patterns established in other corporate enforcement actions, monetary penalties combined with prospective compliance obligations. The settlement allowed both sides to avoid the risk and publicity of a trial that could have lasted months or years. In April 2026, according to Department of Justice announcements, Walmart and the federal government finalized their settlement. Walmart agreed to pay approximately $450 million to resolve the government's civil allegations. The settlement included no admission of liability or wrongdoing by Walmart, consistent with standard corporate settlement practices. The agreement formally ended the federal lawsuit that had been pending for more than 5 years. Combined with the earlier state settlements, Walmart's total opioid-related payments exceeded $3.4 billion, making it one of the largest corporate resolutions in the opioid litigation landscape. The financial penalties Walmart paid did not simply disappear into government coffers. According to the settlement agreements, the funds were designated for opioid abatement and treatment programs. States, counties, and municipalities received portions of the settlement money based on formulas reflecting the severity of the opioid crisis in their jurisdictions. These funds were earmarked for addiction treatment services, overdose prevention programs, law enforcement initiatives, and public health campaigns. The settlement structure aimed to direct resources toward communities most harmed by the opioid epidemic, though critics questioned whether money alone could address the crisis. Beyond monetary payments, the settlement imposed significant operational requirements on Walmart. According to the settlement terms, Walmart agreed to enhance its pharmacy compliance programs, improve pharmacist training on controlled substance regulations, and strengthen systems for identifying and reporting suspicious prescriptions. The company committed to maintaining these enhanced protocols for multiple years under federal oversight. Independent monitors would review Walmart's compliance efforts and report to the Department of Justice. These prospective obligations represented an attempt to prevent future violations, addressing the government's concern that financial penalties alone would not change corporate behavior. The Walmart settlement raised fundamental questions about corporate accountability in public health crises. Critics argued that allowing companies to settle without admitting wrongdoing undermined deterrence and accountability. If corporations could pay fines while denying fault, what incentive existed to change behavior? Supporters of the settlement approach countered that protracted litigation consumed resources better spent on treatment and prevention. They argued that obtaining funds quickly for communities in crisis outweighed the symbolic value of a guilty verdict. The debate reflected broader tensions in how America addresses corporate misconduct through the legal system. For Walmart, the settlement represented both a financial cost and a reputational challenge. The company's total opioid-related payments exceeded $3.4 billion, a significant sum even for America's largest retailer. However, Walmart's annual revenues exceed $600 billion, meaning the settlement represented less than 1% of yearly sales. The company's stock price showed minimal lasting impact from the settlement announcements. From a purely financial perspective, Walmart absorbed the penalties without fundamental damage to its business model. The settlement allowed the company to move past the litigation and avoid the uncertainty of trial. The Walmart case did not occur in isolation. Other major pharmacy chains faced similar allegations and reached comparable settlements with federal and state authorities. CVS, Walgreens, and other national chains paid billions collectively to resolve opioid-related claims. According to court records and public announcements, these parallel cases established a pattern: large retail pharmacies settling allegations without admitting wrongdoing while agreeing to enhanced compliance measures. The settlements created a template for resolving corporate liability in the opioid crisis, prioritizing fund recovery over legal accountability. Critics noted that no major pharmacy chain faced criminal prosecution. Even with settlements finalized, pharmacies faced continued scrutiny over opioid prescriptions. Federal and state regulators maintain heightened oversight of controlled substance dispensing. Pharmacists report increased pressure to verify prescriptions and refuse potentially questionable orders. Some physicians complain that legitimate pain patients struggle to fill prescriptions due to pharmacies' caution. The settlements have reshaped pharmacy practice, creating new tensions between access to pain medication and preventing abuse. According to industry reports, pharmacies continue navigating regulatory uncertainty about their obligations, the very ambiguity that formed part of Walmart's original defense. The Walmart opioid case offers lessons about corporate responsibility, regulatory enforcement, and public health crisis response. It demonstrates that even America's largest corporations face legal consequences when government authorities allege systematic failures contributing to public harm. Yet the settlement without admission model raises questions about whether such consequences truly deter future misconduct or simply represent a cost of doing business. The case illustrates the challenge of assigning accountability in complex systems involving manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, prescribers, and regulators. As communities continue addressing the opioid epidemic's aftermath, the Walmart settlement stands as one chapter in a much longer story about America's struggle to balance commerce, medicine, and public health.